Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of the Commercial Real Estate 101 Meetup Group. Excited to see you all today. Today, we actually have a recurring guest on the show, a good buddy of mine, and we do a recurring news hour channel together to talk about commercial real estate, and I figured it would be a good opportunity for us to have him back on the podcast. We just finished up Q1, and I figured it would be awesome to be able to kind of discuss a little bit about accountability in commercial real estate. So how do you keep yourself accountable throughout the year and continuously improve through the process? So today I'd like to welcome my friend Henry Eisenstein to the channel. How's it going, my friend?
Doing amazing, man. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. No, I thought it would be great to have you back on to kind of wrap up Q1 and talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done in your business and continue to do to just continue to build upon the success that you've already had. So just kind of briefly, obviously we've had you on the podcast in the past. I'm sure there's a lot of people, if they follow me and they follow this channel, they know that, about you. But for those who don't know about you, could you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Real quick, I was the quiet kid in the back of the room that really no one would have bet on back in middle school and high school. Got into the real estate business at 20 years old. Completely floundered my first year or two in the business. Never made more than $40,000. Quit the industry, and went to a Tony Robbins event that absolutely changed my life. Invested in coaching, invested in myself, put everything on credit cards, and my first mentor basically said to me, "Listen, man, you got everything that it takes to be successful, like many of us do. You just got to focus, and if you focus with a long-term mentality, 10 years." Keep your head down. No grass is greener. No grass is greener. Keep your eyes focused on the prize. I promise you'll be successful. I got back in the real estate business with that kind of mentality. That was about 8 years ago. Then almost $10 million in commissions, over $500 million worth of real estate sales. Started on the resi side, built it to 100 transactions a year. Then, which was mostly investment sales. My investors grew up in the industry, so I grew up in the industry and landed in the commercial world a number of years ago, and have fallen in love and been there ever since. So,
definitely, yeah. And you yourself are also starting to get into on the investment side. Obviously, you own some commercial investments yourself and starting to grow that as well. So it's really impressive what you've been able to do in a short period of time, my friend. And I'm honored to know you, and looking forward to kind of diving into today's topic. So, as I mentioned before, as we record this, we are in April 5th. So the first quarter of the year has ended March 31st. And, this is an opportunity for a lot of people to kind of look at their performance over that period to see ways that they can improve. So I guess one of the things that I was kind of curious about, if you could share, is how did you, let's take yourself back to maybe December or whenever you were kind of planning the first quarter of this particular year. Could you give us a breakdown of the way that you kind of structured your approach to make sure that your first quarter was as successful as possible?
Yeah, I think that I'll give you the mistake I made for a few years, and then I'll kind of shift to what we're doing today. So the big mistake that I would make was that I would set goals, right? I was always a goal setter, right? I would set goals like many of us, towards the end of the year, right? We all do these New Year's resolutions. I set a lot of goals, but I didn't make it so specific down to the amount of calls, the amount of action, like the specific activities that needed to be done in order to achieve the goal. It'd be like, oh, my goal is to make, next year is to make $100,000, right? Or $1 million, whatever the goal is. And I would do that all the time, right? I would say like, okay, well, to make $1 million, I got to sell X amount of properties at X average price point at X average commission. That's my goal. But then I never got this is a number of years ago. I never got granular, which is like, how many specific calls does that take? How many leads? How many appointments? How many contracts does that actually take? And broken down up to, to the quarter, to the month, to the week, to the day, to say like, okay, what actually needs to be done every day in order to achieve it? Am I on track? Am I off track? Right? Like, I was not that granular, and I don't think many people are. Right. So what we do now is that we are so granular with every single step of the way. So it's to say, like, every one of my salespeople on my team, I specifically get so clear. What's your financial goal, right, this year? Because everyone typically starts financial. And then even getting granular on where the money goes so they can actually understand why the goal is important. Because some people just say, I want to make $100,000 because they've never made $100,000 before, right? It's the most common goal people set when they get in the industry. So we specifically map out, if they go, hey, I want to make $200,000, where is all 200 going? Well, you got taxes, You got to pay your rent or wherever you live, your mortgage, right? You got to pay all these other bills. What's your, how much is your monthly bills? So, and then after taxes, how much are you left with? Well, I'm only, hypothetically, someone who only says they want to make 100 grand. Their rent is $4,000 a month. Their car payments, their bills, all their personal life, all it charges them $7,000 a month, right? All that 7 grand. It's like, okay, well, 7 grand times 12 is what? $84,000 a year, right? 84 grand a year. To make 100 after taxes is only like 70 grand, right? Like, so it's like, that's actually not enough to even pay your bills, right? And yeah, sure, most real estate agents try to write off absolutely everything, and because they don't want to show any incomes because they can't afford to pay their taxes. So what's interesting here is like, it's seriously getting that granular. And I was never that granular up until the last few years, which is meeting with several incredibly successful people, which is what you do not track cannot grow, right? If you want something to grow, you must track it, track the progress, track the activity, track the metrics. You must track every aspect of it. It's like if you want to lose weight and you never step foot on the scale, what are you guessing? That's what people do in their business, right? The only metric that they have is literally checking their bank account, right? They just look at their bank account every once in a while. And some of you are so scared to even look at your bank account because there's nothing in there, right? Which if you do not look at it, it will not grow. And so it's just this downward spiral versus an upward spiral. So it's being that intentional with you, the way you set goals, and the way that you are constantly having meetings, whether it's with yourself, CEO time. I talk about this on, in my coaching program, which is CEO time with yourself, weekly accountability time with you and you, okay, or your management team once you have a company, which is 30 minutes every week. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more, but you literally sit down and look at all the metrics every week. Hey, my goal to make $1 million, including me doing this amount of calls, this amount of conversations, this amount of leads generated, this amount of appointments, all these things every week. You've tracked it, you look at it and you go, am I on track? Am I off track? And how can I shift? How can I adjust today? Because what most people do is they just make it to the end of the year and they go, oh, I didn't hit my goal. And I wonder why.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And really, even to that point, I'm in the same boat in a lot of ways where I've gotten better about tracking certain metrics to make sure that I'm able to have repeatable actions going forward. But I'm sure a lot of people fall short in that category. So obviously providing that type of context is very valuable for a lot of people. So I appreciate you sharing that. You referenced metrics and you kind of highlighted a few already, but I was kind of curious as to what metrics in particular that you're kind of focusing on. You kind of highlighted the calls as obviously being the driver. Obviously, the more conversations you have, the more it leads to potential business. But is there any other metrics in particular that you guys track? And then how does that extrapolate over a period of time?
Yeah, and I want people to hear this. And I'll dive into every metric we track, or at least as many I can remember off the top of my head real quick. But I want people to pay attention to the fact that if you're not tracking anything right now, which many of you might be in that position, to go from tracking nothing to tracking the next 10 or 20 metrics I'm about to list for you would be stupid, because you're probably not going to do it, right? I would suggest finding maybe 3 to start. 3 metrics. Track those 3 every single month without fail for 60 to 90 days. And then add 2 or 3 more. And then add 2 or 3 more, right? And then eventually at the end of this year, now you're tracking everything to a very high extent. Okay. And I even ask, what we try to do is that, for very busy entrepreneurs who can't, who are not tracking anything, we sometimes support them in our coaching program. We talk about specifically hiring a VA to support you with tracking metrics, because their entire job could just be making sure that the reporting gets done. So let's talk about the exact metrics. Let's just break, and I'm literally, because the cool part is that it's just the process, the entirety of the process, right? And you just break down every nuance metric wise, which is, it starts with, if some of you do paid advertising, but call it calls, right? Like I like to just break down to how many calls are you making a day? How many calls, how many conversations, which turn into leads? How many leads are you generating? How many appointments are you setting, right? Then from the appointments, how many contracts are you writing? My team tracks how many letters of intent are we writing up every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year. How many listings did we pitch, right? When we spoke to a seller, how many times did we pitch a listing? What is that actual percentage ratio of conversation to listing pitched, right? What is the amount of contract value, right? So how many LOIs we write up? Great. What is the amount of contracted value that we wrote up this month? How can we continuously improve that number, right? You have the accepted offers, both the amount of offers that are accepted, the number of contracts that are accepted, and the value of each of those contracts, the amount of deals that are currently under contract, and have the value, the number of those contracts, and what the value of that is, and the commissions that those are all worth, by the way. The next step is how many deals closed, right? Like how many deals do you have that closed? And then the percentage of contracted to closed, and that ratio, because it's not always going to be 100%, right? If it is right now, God bless. Most of the time, we both know that that's not going to be 100%. Then obviously you have the tract of not only the number of contracts that close, the production value of the contracts that close, the commission amount for the contracts that close, the commission percentage of the contracts that closed, right? And then the amount of referrals that we receive and the amount of referrals that we give out, right? Obviously, I just didn't, listed quite a number of them. But, again, we're talking about 20 or 30 metrics that everyone should be tracking in any business. Because then the goal here from now those metrics is, like, the most important piece is a lot of it is just the conversion percentages, which is like, so because what you can do is you can find your bottleneck in your business so much easier when you literally just see it on a spreadsheet and go, oh, I'm having a lot of calls, but I'm not generating a lot of leads. Interesting. Why is that? Maybe I'm not using a script. Well, if I use a script, or maybe I don't have a good data set, and a lot of my phone numbers are bad, that could be why, right? Or maybe you're generating a ton of leads, but you're not getting a lot of contracts signed. Why is that? Well, X, Y, Z, right? Like maybe the ability of the deals that you're pitching, your pitching script is not great. You don't have great buyers to send these deals to, right? Maybe you're not getting a lot of listings for whatever reason, and you got to look into why, right? How are the appointments going? Well, my conversion rate on appointment to contract is like 3%. Why is that, right? Like, and looking into all these different pieces where you can literally find your bottleneck in your business, that if you just make a little bit of a tweak, you can all of a sudden double or triple or quadruple your company or your income, right? Your GCI, gross commissionable income. You could double it overnight. Like, this is how some of my coaching students are seeing a double, triple, quadruple in their business so fast, is because all I'm looking for as fast as possible, what's your bottleneck? That's it. Because if I know if I can unlock a bottleneck, all of a sudden I can unlock a 20% growth in your business, a 50% growth in the business, 100% growth or more in your business fairly quickly.
100%. No, I couldn't agree more with you. And it really, like you said, it's pretty amazing the delta that you can achieve in just a relatively short period of time. So if, like you said, if you're making 150 or 200 grand a year and your conversion rate on leads is, call it 5%, and then you just increase that to 10%, that could double your income. So if you like, the focal point on the actual metric is obviously of significant value. And so, I appreciate that. If you were to say, and again, we have a lot of people listening to the call, as you're aware, that are kind of newer in the business or just kind of establishing themselves in their career. So maybe they haven't followed this process for quite some time. You mentioned 20 plus different metrics, which I think is phenomenal, as you mentioned before. But what would you think are the three most important that if you track them and you get 80% of the results, and maybe that's 4 or 5? I just wanted to kind of let you, spitball a little bit on that.
Okay. So best metrics to track, if you're tracking 0, I would probably say leads generated, the amount of appointments that you're conducting or setting, right? If you're trying to get listings, and if you're just doing it more like me, where like I don't really go for listings, then I would not do listings. I would shift to just the amount of LOIs or true offers you're getting, right? It's one or the other, right? And then the amount of money that you're closing, right? Every single month. It should just be on a sheet, just like the amount of closings, right? So you just have leads, listings, or true offers that you're receiving, and the amount of money generated every single month. I'd probably start with those 3, and then you can add the layers, right? And start there, right? Because then you can clearly see it's like, okay, well, if I generated 4 leads last month and I made nothing, you're probably like, why is this occurring? Well, my leads generated is super low. Okay, great. Well, if I'm generating 30 leads last month, right, and I had no listings or no offers, well, that's my problem. I have no, clearly, there's my bottleneck. I need to figure out why I'm not getting any offers or no listings. Clearly my listing presentation is not great. The people I'm pitching to, I have not done a pre-qualification call. I've not vetted them. I have not asked a lot of the key questions. Maybe I don't have a script for that. And then specifically around the dollar amount, I'd be like, okay, well, if I want to make more money, right, then you go all the way back to the lead list and go, what am I actually prospecting? I only made, $7,000 last month. But okay, well, if I only made 7 grand and I generated 25 leads, where's the disconnect? Like what size properties am I calling on? What's my average commission percentage on those deals? Well, clearly, if you're, if you want to be, 7 grand is typically not enough for most people to live on after you pay taxes and everything else. It's like, okay, well, how do I increase my average commission percentage, my average deal size, my, like all these different metrics where like now it's like you can continue looking back and probably like those three should probably give you a good foundation to start.
That's great. No, I appreciate that. So, to kind of provide perspective on a day in the life as well, to kind of, because again, you mentioned activity throughout the week, and then at the end of the week, you provide a kind of an overview. You look at kind of where you're at on a week-to-week basis, and you make pivots as it goes. So could you kind of provide us with context regarding maybe a week in the life of Henry Eisenstein and how you're kind of going on a Monday through Friday, and then on the Friday, or maybe you do it on the weekends. I'm not sure if that's when you take the time to kind of revise everything. If you could kind of share some insights there, that'd be great.
Yeah. So most of the time, the way I'm just going to go for a day real quick.
Mm-hmm.
For a day, it typically is I have all my team meetings between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning. Once that's completed, I will jump on the phones. I'll get on into my prospecting time, which is, so I start with the hottest lead follow-up, and then I'll get into cold prospecting for new leads. Then around somewhere between 12 and 1 o'clock, I have team meetings with whether it's professional partner, not team meetings, professional partner meetings, like my investors that I do deals with, professional partners who've referred me a lot of business. Some of my investors that I'm doing a lot of production with, between 12 and 1, I have like time to set aside specifically to get in touch with some of these people who I'm pitching deals to. Just time for literally just me to focus on business, working on the business, not in the business type of activity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then from 1:30 till 3 o'clock, I have meetings with my team every day to discuss everything that occurred that morning, all the new leads that we generated. And that's typically where I'll end up submitting offers on between, 10, 20, 30, 40 properties a day. So all the leads that we generated that day, I'll submit offers. Obviously my team's setting up a lot of appointments and conducting all the appointments then afterwards as well, right? So after the 1:30 to 3, they're now going to be all my team members, including myself, are spending time pitching deals to investors that like they generated all these leads in the morning. They're now going to pitch those deals or the leads that we've generated in the past that we have like basically off market listings or current listings. We're going to spend the entirety of the rest of the day trying to sell those deals. Try to get as many offers as possible on our deals that we have. And then typically I have a 4:30 meeting with my team one more time, basically an ending day wrap. And the entirety of the rest of my day is to make sure I achieve my minimum goal, right? So today's been a little bit weird just because I had a lot of small personal things I had to handle, but this is a note that I have. All right, let's see if I can get it on the camera real fast. Hold on.
Yeah, let's see.
Hold on.
I can't really see too well, but if you want to read it off too, for those who are
Whatever.
listening.
So, okay, cool. Yeah. So, sorry for the picture camera, the quality here. But I have the day of the week, obviously, to begin with. Then I have my goals for today, right? So this is 2 hot leads, 1 true offer a day, 2 accepted offers. That's my day. That's my goal for that day. And then I have my goals for the year, which is $20 million in GCI, and I have my first $2 million month. Then I have a personal goal of 10 million cash in the bank. And then I have my mantra that I write at the bottom, which is win the day. So I write this Post-it down every day. And then I basically take the entirety of the rest of my day after my 4:30 wrap call to basically say, did I check every one of these boxes, right? Can I cross these off the list? And if so, and don't get me wrong, there's sometimes where at 4:30 or 4:45 sharp, 5 o'clock sharp, I'm done. I finished everything on my list. I'm good. My team's good. Everybody's handled. I don't have any meetings for the rest of the day. I'm done. Right. And then there's some days where I work till 10 o'clock at night. Right? Because I haven't accomplished these things and I'm going to keep going until I accomplish the goal. Right? It's like, what's the point of writing it down if you're not going to commit to it?
That's great. No, and that kind of leads me to the next question, which I think is literally the most important reason for this call, because you can talk about tactics, you can talk about structure, you can talk about day-to-day all day long, but at the end of the day, it's all about holding yourself accountable to achieving whatever desires you have. And everyone has different desires. I mean, you kind of referenced some of the desires that you have. That may be very different from someone else. But at the end of the day, if you want to live a life that you want to achieve, you have to set yourself up for that level of success through diligent and deliberate action on a day-to-day. So on the accountability side, I mean, you seem like a very driven individual. So I'm sure a lot of that is self-imposed, but I guess what would you describe as your structure or way to approach the accountability process for the things you need to do on a day-to-day?
Yeah. So funny enough, I mean, I definitely think I'm driven, but it's hard for me to keep myself accountable. So what I found, and I've just found that intrinsically of just being in the industry, not the industry, but in business for myself for decade at this point, where I have found that it's actually better for me to pay a coach to keep me accountable, right? Because I need like third party accountability for me to perform at the highest levels. That's what's worked. That's what's worked best for me throughout my career, right? And I also have both paid and not paid. So like I have coaches that I pay for, and then I have accountability buddies, like good friends of mine who make a ton of money, and we basically come together and say, okay, we're going to meet for 5 minutes once a week, right? And we basically just quick accountability call every single week, make sure that we're getting done everything that we promised ourselves that we would get done. Somewhere like 75 hard. If I didn't tell anybody that I did 75 hard, which is drinking a gallon of water a day, 2 workouts a day, 45 minutes indoor, 45 minutes outdoor, no alcohol, no drugs, following a diet, and reading 10 pages a day. If I told nobody that I was doing it, if I did not do it one day, no one would know. Right. Mm-hmm. But because I decided to tell everybody that I knew, hey, I'm doing this. I had accountability partners. I had 2 accountability partners that were doing it. One was doing it with me at the time, close by me, and then another guy that it was actually in my coaching group who was also doing it. So everybody in my life knew I was doing it. So I could not screw it up, because if I went to everybody and said, hey, I messed up a day, I got to restart, then you get all the people going, oh, I figured. Oh, that makes sense, right? Like you get all these people who are like, they're going to give me that comment. I don't want that. I know I can keep myself accountable. And that's why I try to tell everybody my goals, everything I'm looking to do, because the more people I tell, the more people I'm being held accountable to.
Yeah, that's great. And I really appreciate that, that insight, because, similar to you in a lot of ways, is that some of the best accountability is just by telling the world about what you want to do, because you don't want to look like an idiot in front of people, because obviously that I'm taking on this small development project, and I've been just telling everyone, I was like, hey, we're going to do this, blah 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 blah, and it's a long, complicated, long process. We had to raise money to do it. So the whole process, people would not be surprised if for whatever reason it just didn't pan out. But for me, like, I've already told everyone it's going to happen, so it's going to happen come hell or high water. It just is what it is. So having that level of accountability is an important piece. And you kind of referred to having friends within your life that you like and respect and can hold you accountable to doing great things. I have a mastermind group that I'm a part of. Once a month we meet up and we hold each other accountable to hit goals throughout the month. That's been extremely helpful for my business. On the coaching side, I don't think there's anything better that can replace having a third party be someone that kind of holds you accountable to doing things, to do the things you want to accomplish. And really, I've had coaches for years, ever since I think 2015 is when I got my first coach. And ever since then, I've been involved with coaching, and it's been game changing, unbelievably game changing. And again, it's just one of those things where, even having someone that you have to hold yourself accountable to at the end of the week is enough in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I agree. I think people don't understand the true intrinsic value of a coach, which is, imagine if we could squeeze the juice out of every ounce of your capacity, right? What is that worth? How much more do you think you have that you can do on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis or annual basis if you were just held a little bit more accountable, right? In every aspect of your life, right? Because so many people don't realize that, like, every dollar I've invested in myself, hundreds of thousands of dollars in conferences, courses, mentors, coaches, you name it. Every dollar I've invested in myself has literally given me a minimum of $1 to $2 equivalent per year, right? Which is insane in value, right? Because it's like, if you invested 10 grand in coaching, right? And it then allowed you to earn 10 extra $1,000 per year for the entirety of the rest of your life, right? I mean, that's 100% annually, on your money, which nothing else gives you. but investing in yourself can, in your wisdom, right? What is that worth, right? People blindly invest $100,000 minimum typically in going to college with literally no guarantee of return. And they see the value there because they've been brainwashed with the idea that they need to do it or they'll amount to nothing. But people can't think of or can't fathom the idea of investing 10 grand, investing in themselves when it comes to their business or their mentality, their mindset, their sales abilities, right? Their communication abilities, their negotiation abilities. And it's like every check that we earn is over 6 figures, right? What do you mean that you don't want to spend an extra 10 grand investing in yourself? It's like if you could close one extra deal a year, what is that worth to your business, to your life, to your family, right? To your community, to your charities you want to support, to the people in your life? What is that worth? It's worth a lot of money. So it's like the more money you invest in yourself, you are like an ATM machine. Every dollar you put in, you get multiples back, right? So it's just, I think that it's interesting the people's perspective when it comes to coaching and mentorship, where it's like, well, I'll do it when I have the money. Like that's the complete counterintuitive. It's like saying, I'm going to get a personal trainer when I'm skinny and in good shape. The reason why you're overweight right now, or the reason why you're broke right now, right? Your business is not feeling good, right? You are not physically feeling good is because you don't have the current accountability and you don't have the, the plan maybe, right? You don't have the, the specific things you should be working on in order to have the results you want in your life, right? Every aspect of one's life, you can, you should have some type of guidance and mentorship or coaching, right? It's like, it's not rocket science. Like some of the greatest CEOs, the greatest athletes in the world have coaches, and they've had them since they started. Right? That's why they're where they're at, and why the people who don't have coaches and they don't have mentors who think they could just tough it out on their own. It's like, what do you have to prove? There's no ego here, right? It's like the greatest people in the world have accountability. The greatest players of every sport, every profession have accountability players, right? Or people in their life that they're going to be held accountable to, coaches, mentors. Like, why? What's the I have to do it on my own approach? It's like, it's okay to need support or even want support. I want support.
Yeah.
Right. I've never made $100 million in a year before. Right. I would love to. I want to. I want to build, I'm working on, we're going to be launching a hedge fund. I've never built a hedge fund before. Right. I need a support and accountability to do these things. I've never built $100 million a year, real estate team before. I don't have $100 million under management. That's, I want $1 billion plus under management. I don't have that. So I need to find somebody who has it to give me the guidance. And sure, could I do it on my own? Could I tough it out? Right? Sure. But why would I take the ability? Like if I could hypothetically shortcut it by partnering with somebody or investing in a coach in that specific aspect, and it saves me 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years of aggravation, mistakes, financial and physical costs. It's like, why would I ever do that?
Yeah.
I don't see the upside.
Well, and it's it's the compounding effect of those actions too, where it's like,
Exactly.
you have that mentality, you focus on one direction, and then you kind of fit the pieces to kind of get to where you need to go. And it doesn't take that long. I mean, when did you start in real estate? 10 years ago?
Just about 10 years ago. Yeah, 20 when I was 20.
10 years. I mean, you've been able to accomplish more than most people accomplish in their career within a 10-year period. But again, when you first started, you probably were not in that same mindset. You had a very quote unquote limited mindset, and over time that expanded, and you started bringing in new people in your life, and hopefully incorporating coaching and incorporating metrics in your business to be able to support a growing enterprise. And now you're in a position where you couldn't have fathomed that you were going to be in that position 10 years ago. So, I think that's why this type of message, in my opinion, is so important, is because sometimes you have to hear it multiple different times in different ways and from multiple different people before it actually rings true. And you never know when it's going to happen. It just all of a sudden clicks, and hopefully at that point you decide to take control of your life and make it for the better. So
yeah, and just the last thing we'll add to this is sometimes it's not like you go to a coach and they say something that's so unbelievably unheard of, like it's so profound. But sometimes it's just the way that they say the same thing that you've always been hearing, and maybe the way that they explain on how to do it, or the simplicity around it, or the implementation of it, right? And they just make it so much simpler sometimes, where like it's just exactly what you needed to hear, which allows you to actually see progress, right?
Yeah.
Because my first mentor told me I needed to make cold calls. I was terrified of making cold calls first year of my career, I never wanted to do it. Now I've made over 1 million cold calls in my career. I mean, my team makes 100,000 cold calls a month, right? So it's like, I was terrified to pick up the phone in this industry. And what I found was that because she wasn't willing to do it herself, this is something she was telling me to do, make cold calls, make cold calls. You should make prospecting calls, Henry. But she wasn't willing to pick up the phone herself. She didn't prospect herself. She didn't have a clear script for me. None of the systems were built out. And it's like, okay, well, me hearing I need to make cold calls, make cold calls, make cold calls. I did not even like, it was still so tough for me to comprehend how it looked, what it sounded like. Right. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I got the next team I went to getting a mentor and a coach right away, they literally go, get this system, get this dialer, this software, save this script, call this lead list, right? Do X, Y, and Z and do it from this time to this time. I was like, oh, that's easy. And then all of a sudden I went to making 100, having 100 conversations a day in less than 6 months. Right. And then all of a sudden I went from making less than $40,000 a year to 30 months later making $100,000 a month. Right. Where I just did not have from my first mentor and the first people I had spoken to, even though it's the same freaking concept. And again, this is just one little piece of it, but as simple as making call, there wasn't a plan. There was not the simplicity of exactly how to get there, from place or a destination A to destination B. I didn't have any idea. Like all these little things were just hyperbole. But once it was all written out and there was a specific plan to follow, I just did the plan and it worked.
That's great insight, man. No, that's phenomenal. So one more question I wanted to ask before we kind of open it up to Q&A. We have plenty of people. We have some people listening on LinkedIn. I actually for whatever reason, the connection between my StreamYard and LinkedIn isn't properly showing up. So, but either way, we do have some people listening into the call.
Sure.
But the last thing I wanted to ask you was, I guess if you wanted people to take away, call it 2-3 pieces of advice, if they listen to nothing else throughout this call, what 3 small pieces of advice would you say take action in this direction?
Okay. Number one, you must be a deal sourcing machine. In the commercial real estate business, the people who get paid the most and have the longest, have the greatest longevity in this industry are deal sourcing, opportunity sourcing machines. Okay. Where your only job as a commercial real estate broker, regardless of what huge corporate companies try to get you to think around getting a bunch of listings, that's not what it's about. You want to find properties that will sell, listings that will sell. You must become a deal sourcing machine and understand the deal piece here, right? It's not just property sourcing machine, listing sourcing machine. It's deal. So good properties that will actually return money to the investor. Okay. Because if a property doesn't make money, it's not a deal. Okay. And actually right after this training, this podcast, I'm doing an underwriting training from my students to figure out to understand the difference between a property and a deal, right? Because they're very, very drastically different. So number one, become a deal sourcing machine. Number one. Number two, you must constantly be paying attention to your metrics. Have to, right? How many leads are you generating? We talked about this earlier, but if you're not paying attention to your metrics, which is like literally even the simplicity of, hey, my average price point last year was $600,000. If you're not paying attention to your metrics, number one, you wouldn't know what your average price point is, and you wouldn't know that you should be increasing it and or how to increase it, right? But if you're not paying attention to these metrics, it's like, do you understand the simplest way to make more money in the commercial real estate industry, which no one talks about because everyone just talks about, oh, I got to sell more property, sell more property, sell more property. Did you know that the easiest way to make more money in this industry is to sell more expensive property, just slightly more expensive property? If your average price point was $600,000 and you want to make a 20% raise, sell 20% more expensive properties on average, and you will make a 20% raise. It's that simple. Right? Yeah. So every year, one thing we work on my team is specifically constantly selling, have a higher average sales price and a higher average commission percentage. Those are the two things that I religiously look at all the freaking time because you could literally guarantee a raise without fail. Okay. So that's number two. Number three, I would say you must be paying attention to the amount of true offers you are receiving on a daily and weekly and monthly basis. Okay. Because it's not only important to how many great deals you come across, because it just makes the whole game easier, right? It's like, how many actual true offers are you getting on every product you have available for sale? Okay. Because if you're not taking specific direct action to now sell the deals that you have generated, you could have the greatest deals on planet Earth. You could have the Empire State Building locked up at $1 million. Okay. But if you don't tell anybody, you're never going to sell it. Right. So it's keep in mind that like having all the deals as someone, like, my intention is not just to list a bunch of properties. My intention is to generate the most off-market deals, best off-market product ever. So if people want great deals, they come to me. If they want to make great money in real estate, you come to me. Right. That's what I want to become. Right. The greatest deal sourcing, paying attention to all the metrics, and then getting the most offers possible on those properties to make sure we can make the most money possible, because I look through the lens of an investor first. Right. My overall goal is to buy great deals. Right. And obviously I had the same goal, by the way, before I even got in the industry. So, 20 years old, when I didn't have any money, I said I wanted to be an investor. So everyone's like, oh, well, I don't have any money. It's okay to have the goal when you don't have any money, but they have the lens of saying, hey, I'm going to look at all these opportunities as an investor first. So I understand intrinsically if this is a good deal, how I can increase my average price point. So when I speak to these investors to try to pitch these deals, I know it's a good deal because I've run the numbers 1,000 times. Right. And if you focus on those three things, it's really hard to not make money in this industry.
Definitely. No, I couldn't agree more with what you just said. So I know, Henry, obviously we appreciate your time. I'll leave it open to Q&A. We'll give it about a minute to, if any of you guys are listening on the call, to open up the Q&A. In the meantime, one thing I wanted to kind of have an opportunity to say was also, Henry, if you guys aren't aware, he obviously works a lot with different brokers to help them expand their business. He's worked with a variety of different people. So I don't know if you could share some information pertaining to that. I think that'd be great.
Yeah. Like, my intention is that we follow a 6-step process to figure out exactly what key metrics, like we keep alluding to, what metrics that if increased specifically, your income should double immediately, right? So we specifically target the bottlenecks in your business on the 6 key points of where the most revenue can be generated from, right? And we just hyper target those specific things over a period of time together. It's really hard to not make more money, right? And by the way, I originally remember thinking how difficult it was. Like I could not, at the first few years of my business, I couldn't understand how to break $100,000. I just, like, it literally was so hard for me. And then once I heard it through the lens of someone else, studying business consultants and exactly what they specifically look for in businesses. I mean, I literally studied business consulting for a number of years from a number of the top consultants around the world. And I just found that they all focus on the same few things. And if you just focus on those same few things, it's really easy to increase revenue. Right. And then it's just about managing the money. Right. So that's what we focus on. Right. The few key metrics in any business that allow for explosive revenue growth with very little change in effort.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, again, if anyone wants to schedule a call, you can go anywhere on my bio, YouTube channel, check it out. There's a bunch of links you can all check out, but whatever.
Definitely.
By the way, just check out the YouTube channel. There's a bunch of free content. Check that out before you ever even think about it.
Absolutely, man. No, I appreciate that. So, I think we had one comment in the chat, which I was gonna go ahead and share. So it looks like, yeah. So, all right. It looks like it's not. I'm having a little bit of a technical issue. My bad, dude. So, but either way, I guess what I was going to say, just to kind of summarize, guys, this is a new quarter. It's Q2. We're excited to kind of continue to build upon our business, and hopefully over time you've gained some value from this particular conversation. For particular regarding this podcast, we obviously appreciate you guys showing up each and every week to learn about the different concepts pertaining to commercial real estate. Henry, before we hop off, how can people kind of learn more about what you're doing and get in contact with you if they'd like to?
Yeah, anywhere that literally you can find me on every platform at Henry Eisenstein, just my full name, HenryEisenstein, or email us at info@henryeisenstein.com. We're here to support you in any way, shape, and form possible. Ton of free content, ton of free value. We want the whole intention that, me creating content is really just, I want commercial real estate agents to make as much money as humanly possible so they can go out and buy great deals. And maybe we can end up doing some great deals together. So Thank you for
Absolutely.
having me on, my man. I
Oh,
appreciate
please,
you.
of course, man. It's an honor to have you on as always. Like I said, if you guys like this channel, please like and subscribe. It does make a difference in our ability to reach a broader audience, and we greatly appreciate the support. So thanks again so much for stopping by, and we'll see you all next time.